This white powder sits on pharmacy shelves for $2, ignored by everyone except grandmothers buying it for foot soaks. But this same powder can turn your potato patch from a field of marbles into a harvest of fist-sized tubers that weigh twice what they should. It's called boric acid, and while agricultural supply companies sell you $100 fertility programs, this simple compound does what their expensive cocktails can't. It signals potato plants to concentrate their energy into fewer, larger tubers instead of wasting it on dozens of worthless pebbles. Today you'll discover why agronomists won't tell you about the most powerful tuber-sizing agent that's been hiding in plain sight for over a century, and why the potato industry desperately wants to keep this $2 secret buried. If you've ever wondered why your neighbor's potatoes look like they came from a different planet, while yours look like they came from a toy store, by the end of this investigation, you'll understand not just the missing link in potato production, but also the economics behind why simple solutions are buried while complex ones are marketed. Prepare to uncover a truth that could revolutionize your harvest with one trip to the corner pharmacy. Let me start with a story that will make your skin crawl. In 1952, a potato farmer in Idaho noticed something strange. Half his field was producing potatoes the size of softballs, while the other half was giving him what looked like gravel. Same soil, same water, same variety, same everything. The only difference was that his neighbor's dairy cows had been grazing on the first half the year before, leaving behind their manure. But here's what's disturbing. It wasn't the nitrogen in that manure that made the difference. It wasn't the phosphorus or the potassium that every fertilizer company swears by. It was trace amounts of boron that the cows had picked up from eating alfalfa grown on mineral-rich soil. This farmer accidentally stumbled upon what potato scientists had been trying to understand for decades. Boron doesn't just help potatoes grow, it controls how they grow. Without adequate boron, a potato plant becomes a biological chaos machine, frantically producing dozens of tiny tubers instead of channeling its energy into a few large ones. With proper boron levels, that same plant becomes a precision instrument, creating exactly the number of tubers it can properly support and sizing them to maximum potential. The potato industry knew this. Agricultural universities knew this. Fertilizer companies definitely knew this. But none of them wanted farmers knowing they could solve their sizing problems with a $2 bottle of pharmacy powder instead of a $200 soil amendment program. Here's what they discovered in those early studies. Boron acts as a cellular traffic controller in potato plants. During the critical tuber formation stage, it regulates calcium transport and cell wall formation. Plants deficient in boron can't properly construct the cellular architecture needed for large tubers. Instead, they build lots of small, structurally weak potatoes with hollow centers and cracked skin. Plants with adequate boron build fewer tubers, but each one has the strong cellular framework needed to expand to full size. The mechanism is elegant and brutal in its simplicity. Boron deficiency triggers a survival response in potato plants, where they hedge their bets by making many small tubers instead of risking everything on a few large ones. It's biological insurance. If one tuber gets damaged or diseased, there are dozens of others to carry on the genetic line. But for farmers trying to sell potatoes by weight, this survival strategy is an economic disaster. The research was clear, the mechanism was understood, and the solution was sitting on every pharmacy shelf. So why didn't this become common knowledge? Why are farmers still buying complex fertilizer blends when the answer costs less than a coffee? The answer lies in the uncomfortable truth about modern agriculture. It's not designed to solve problems efficiently. It's designed to sell products profitably. A farmer who buys a $2 bottle of boric acid once per season is not a profitable customer. A farmer who buys a comprehensive soil management program with quarterly applications and annual soil tests is a customer for life. This is where the story gets really dark. In the 1960s, as industrial agriculture was consolidating, several major fertilizer companies actually bought up patents related to boron application in potatoes. Not to use them, but to bury them. they funded studies that would muddy the waters around boron's role, emphasizing complex nutrient interactions that required expensive multi-component solutions. Meanwhile, practical farmers who stumbled onto boron's power were quietly outproducing their neighbors year after year. These weren't agricultural scientists or university researchers. These were old-school growers who noticed that areas of their fields where they'd dumped ashes from certain types of wood were producing bigger potatoes. Wood ash from boron-rich trees contains naturally occurring borates, and these farmers were accidentally giving their potatoes exactly what they needed. But the agricultural establishment had a problem with these inconvenient successes. Simple solutions don't require experts. They don't generate consulting fees or create dependencies on suppliers. They don't justify the existence of an entire industry built around making farming complicated enough to require professional management. Have you ever used boric acid in your garden before? The suppression of boron information wasn't malicious conspiracy, it was economic evolution. The companies and institutions that survived and thrived were those that could create ongoing revenue streams, not those that solved problems permanently. Boron therapy for potatoes was too effective, too cheap, and too simple to build a business around, so it gradually disappeared from mainstream agricultural advice. Meanwhile, potato farmers struggled with sizing issues that cost them thousands of dollars per acre, while the solution sat on pharmacy shelves for less than the price of a hamburger. But let's get practical. Here's exactly how boron works its magic on potato tubers, and how you can use this knowledge to transform your harvest. Boron's primary role in potato plants is regulating cellular division and expansion during the critical tuber bulking phase. This happens in two stages: initial tuber set, which occurs about 4 weeks after planting, and the major bulking phase, which begins when the plants start flowering. These are your two windows of opportunity to influence final tuber size. During tuber set, boron ensures that the plant forms an appropriate number of tubers for its vigor level. A healthy, well-fed plant might set 12 to 15 tubers, but with adequate boron, it will naturally thin this number down to 6 to 8 tubers that it can properly support. During the bulking phase, boron facilitates the rapid cell expansion that allows these tubers to reach their genetic potential for size. The difference is dramatic. Plants with boron deficiency might produce 20 small tubers averaging 2 ounces each, for a total yield of 2.5 pounds per plant. The same plant with proper boron nutrition will produce 8 tubers averaging 6 ounces each, for a total yield of 3 pounds per plant. That's 20% more weight, but more importantly, it's marketable size potatoes instead of culls. The timing of boron application is critical. Too early, and it interferes with initial plant establishment. Too late, and the tuber formation decisions have already been made. The sweet spot is a 2-stage approach: soil application or seed piece treatment at planting, followed by foliar application at the beginning of flowering. For the pre-planting treatment, dissolve 1 gram of boric acid powder in 1 liter of water. This creates a 0.1% solution that's strong enough to be effective, but weak enough to avoid toxicity. Cut seed potatoes are soaked in this solution for 30 minutes before planting. This gives the developing plant immediate access to boron during the early root formation stage. The second application comes when flower buds first appear on the plants. This timing is crucial because it coincides with the beginning of tuber bulking. Mix 2 grams of boric acid in 10 liters of water and spray the foliage in the evening when temperatures are cool. The plants absorb the boron through their leaves and transport it directly to the developing tubers. If this video is showing you something you've never heard before, hit that like button and subscribe for more agricultural secrets that actually work. The results of proper boron nutrition go far beyond just tuber size. Boron-adequate potatoes have better skin quality, with fewer scab lesions and less cracking. The internal quality is superior too, with fewer hollow heart defects and better storage characteristics. These potatoes cook more evenly and have better texture because their cellular structure is properly developed. But here's where most people make crucial mistakes with boron application. They either use too little and see no results, or they use too much and poison their plants. Boron has the narrowest margin between deficiency and toxicity of any plant nutrient. The difference between helpful and harmful can be as little as doubling the concentration. The safe application rate for boric acid is extremely specific. No more than 1 gram per liter for soil or seed treatment, and no more than 2 grams per 10 liters for foliar application. These might seem like tiny amounts, but boron is so biologically active that these concentrations are all the plant needs. More is not better with boron, it's toxic. Signs of boron overdose appear within days of application. Leaf margins turn brown and crispy, starting with the oldest leaves first. Growth slows dramatically, and in severe cases, the entire plant can die. This is why many farmers who experiment with boron get scared off after their first attempt goes wrong. They use too much, see the damage, and assume boron is dangerous. But it's like saying water is dangerous because you can drown in it. The key is precision. Buy pharmaceutical-grade boric acid powder, not industrial grades that might contain impurities. Use a digital scale that measures grams accurately. Mix small batches and use them immediately. Don't try to store concentrated solutions. Most importantly, always err on the side of too little rather than too much. A slightly deficient plant will still produce decent potatoes. A boron-poisoned plant produces nothing. This precision requirement is actually one of the reasons the agricultural industry moved away from promoting boron use. Farmers are used to fertilizers where you can double or triple the recommended rate without major consequences. They're not accustomed to nutrients where precision is literally the difference between success and disaster. But this is exactly why boric acid was perfect for the pharmaceutical industry and problematic for the agricultural industry. Pharmacists are trained in precise dosing. They understand that effective medicines often have narrow therapeutic windows. Agricultural suppliers, on the other hand, prefer products that are forgiving of application errors and that encourage heavy usage. The economics of boron therapy reveal the true scale of the agricultural industry's misdirection. A typical small-scale farmer might spend $200 to $500 per acre on fertilizers and soil amendments, much of it attempting to solve problems that could be addressed with $5 worth of boric acid. The profit margins in selling complex solutions are enormous, while the profit margins in selling simple solutions are negligible. Consider a typical quote, zero sold by agricultural suppliers. It includes a pre-plant fertilizer, a side dress application, 2 or 3 foliar feeds, and often a late-season supplement. Total cost, $300 to $600 per acre. The boron in this entire program, if any is included at all, might cost $3. But by bundling it with other nutrients and marketing it as a comprehensive system, suppliers can charge 100 times what the active ingredient is worth. This bundling strategy serves another purpose beyond profit maximization. It obscures which component is actually doing the work. When a farmer applies a 20-ingredient fertilizer blend and sees improved tuber sizing, they assume they need all 20 ingredients. They don't realize that one of those ingredients, present in tiny amounts, is responsible for most of the improvement they're seeing. The potato research community has contributed to this confusion by focusing their studies on complex nutrient interactions rather than single nutrient effects. It's much easier to get funding for a study on integrated soil fertility management than for a study on boric acid application rates. One sounds sophisticated and important. The other sounds like something a farmer could figure out themselves. But the farmers who did figure it out have been quietly outproducing their neighbors for decades. These are typically older farmers who learned from previous generations, before industrial agriculture convinced everyone that farming required a chemistry degree. They remember when solutions were simple and when success was measured by results rather than input costs. One such farmer in Maine has been using boric acid on his potatoes for 40 years. His yields consistently exceed county averages, and his tubers are large enough to command premium prices. His total fertilizer cost per acre is about 1/10 of what his neighbors spend, yet his profits per acre are consistently higher. He's never published his methods or spoken at agricultural conferences. He just quietly grows excellent potatoes and banks the difference. This farmer learned his technique from his grandfather, who noticed that potatoes grown on fields where borax had been used as a weed killer produced unusually large tubers. Borax is simply boric acid combined with sodium, and it breaks down in soil to release boron in plant-available form. What was intended as a herbicide accidentally became a tuber-sizing treatment. This type of accidental discovery was common in the pre-industrial farming era, when farmers paid close attention to cause and effect relationships on their land. They noticed which fields produced better crops and tried to understand why. They experimented with different treatments and carefully observed the results. They shared information with neighbors and built on each other's discoveries. Modern agriculture has largely abandoned this empirical approach in favor of research-based recommendations. But research is expensive and time-consuming, and it's typically funded by companies with products to sell. This creates a bias toward complex, patentable solutions and away from simple, unpatentable ones. The result is an agricultural knowledge system that consistently overlooks simple solutions that don't generate revenue for the companies funding the research. Boron therapy for potatoes is just one example. There are dozens of other simple, effective treatments that remain buried because they're too cheap to be commercially interesting. But the internet age is changing this dynamic. Farmers can now share information directly with each other, without going through agricultural extension services or industry publications. They can experiment with simple treatments and report their results to a worldwide audience. The old gatekeepers of agricultural information are losing their monopoly on what farmers know and try. This is both liberating and dangerous. On one hand, effective treatments that have been suppressed for economic reasons are finally getting the attention they deserve. On the other hand, untested and potentially harmful treatments are also spreading rapidly. Farmers need to be more critical than ever about distinguishing between solid evidence and wishful thinking. With boron therapy, the evidence is solid. The mechanism is well understood. The application methods are proven, and the results are consistent when proper procedures are followed. The main risk is not that the treatment doesn't work, but that farmers will use too much and poison their plants. This is why precision is so critical when working with boric acid. Start with the lowest effective dose and only increase if results are insufficient. Keep detailed records of application rates, timing, and results. Treat each field as an experiment and adjust based on what you observe. Most importantly, don't expect instant transformation. Boron therapy works best as part of a long-term soil management strategy. The first year, you might see modest improvements in tuber size and quality. By the third year, as soil boron levels stabilize and plant genetics adapt to adequate nutrition, the improvements become dramatic. The patience required for this approach is another reason why boron therapy has been overshadowed by faster-acting treatments. Farmers under financial pressure want results immediately, and they're willing to pay premium prices for fertilizers that promise quick fixes. Boron therapy requires a longer view and a commitment to building soil health gradually. But for farmers who can think beyond the current season, boric acid represents an opportunity to fundamentally improve their potato production while reducing input costs. It's a rare combination in modern agriculture: better results for less money. The storage and handling of boric acid is straightforward, which adds to its appeal for small-scale operations. The powder is stable indefinitely when kept dry, so one purchase can last multiple seasons. It doesn't require special storage conditions or safety equipment beyond basic precautions. A 5-pound container, which costs $10 to $15, contains enough boric acid to treat several acres for multiple years. Compare this to liquid fertilizers that must be purchased fresh each season, stored in climate-controlled conditions, and applied with specialized equipment. The simplicity of boric acid storage and application makes it accessible to farmers who don't have large storage facilities or expensive application equipment. The environmental profile of boron therapy is another advantage that conventional agriculture prefers to ignore. Boric acid applications use tiny amounts of material and leave no harmful residues in soil or groundwater. Excess boron is quickly bound by soil minerals and becomes unavailable to plants, preventing accumulation over time. This self-limiting characteristic means that even slight over-application doesn't create long-term problems. The boron becomes inactive within weeks, and normal soil processes restore the balance naturally. Compare this to phosphorus fertilizers, which can accumulate in soil for decades and contribute to water pollution, or nitrogen fertilizers, which must be applied repeatedly because they wash out of the root zone. The carbon footprint of boron therapy is virtually zero. Boric acid is produced from natural mineral deposits with minimal processing, and the tiny application rates mean that transportation and packaging impacts are negligible. A single shipment of boric acid can supply a farmer's needs for years, while conventional fertilizers require multiple deliveries per season. Yet environmental groups that promote sustainable agriculture rarely mention boron therapy as an alternative to conventional fertilizers. This oversight reveals another bias in the information system. Environmental advocates, like agricultural scientists, tend to focus on complex, systemic solutions rather than simple, targeted ones. The result is that farmers interested in reducing their environmental impact are steered toward comprehensive organic production systems that require major changes to their operations, while simple improvements like boron therapy that could reduce fertilizer use immediately are ignored. This pattern repeats across many aspects of agriculture. Simple solutions that don't fit into established categories get overlooked by all the experts, while complex solutions that require expert guidance get promoted heavily. The irony is that the simplest solutions are often the most powerful. Boron therapy for potatoes is more effective at improving tuber size than any other single treatment, yet it requires no expert knowledge to implement and costs almost nothing to try. This accessibility is actually a threat to the current agricultural advisory system. If farmers can solve their biggest problems with treatments they can buy at the pharmacy and apply themselves, what's the value of agricultural consultants, soil testing laboratories, and fertilizer dealers? The threat is real enough that some agricultural supply companies have started offering quote 3 that include boron along with other trace elements. These programs cost 50 to 100 times more than buying boric acid directly, but they preserve the intermediary role of the supplier and maintain the complexity that justifies expert involvement. These bundled programs often include boron at the right rates and timing, so they do work. But they train farmers to think that effective boron nutrition requires professional management and expensive inputs. The farmer gets the benefits of boron therapy while remaining dependent on the agricultural supply system. It's a clever business strategy, but it perpetuates the myth that farming requires constant expert intervention and high input costs. Farmers who learn to manage their own boron nutrition realize that many other aspects of crop production are simpler than they've been told. This realization can be the beginning of a fundamental shift in how farmers approach their operations. Instead of relying on outside experts and purchasing inputs to solve every problem, they start observing their crops more closely and experimenting with simple interventions. The skills required for effective boron therapy, careful observation, precise measurement, and systematic record-keeping are the same skills required for effective farming in general. Farmers who master these skills in the context of boron application often find that they can solve other problems with equally simple approaches. This is the real threat that boron therapy represents to industrial agriculture. It's not just a cheap alternative to expensive fertilizers. It's a gateway to independent thinking and self-reliant problem-solving. Farmers who start with boric acid often end up questioning other recommendations and discovering other simple solutions. The agricultural establishment prefers farmers who follow recommendations rather than farmers who ask questions. Boron therapy inevitably leads to questions. If this works so well and costs so little, what else have I been told that isn't true? What other simple solutions am I missing? What other expensive inputs are really necessary? These questions are dangerous to an industry built on dependency and complexity. They lead farmers toward independence and simplicity, which reduces demand for products and services. The agricultural establishment has powerful incentives to discourage this type of questioning. But farmers have equally powerful incentives to ask these questions, especially as input costs continue to rise and profit margins continue to shrink. Every simple solution they discover is money in their pocket and confidence in their ability to manage their operations independently. Boron therapy for potatoes is just one example of how much farmers can accomplish with basic knowledge and simple tools. It's a proof of concept that farming doesn't have to be complicated or expensive to be effective. The future of agriculture may well depend on rediscovering these simple solutions and sharing them widely enough that they can't be suppressed by commercial interests. The internet makes this possible in a way that never existed before. Farmers can now compare notes across continents and build a body of practical knowledge that doesn't depend on corporate funding or institutional approval. The $2 solution to fist-sized potatoes is just the beginning. Once farmers start thinking for themselves and questioning what they've been told, there's no limit to what they might discover. Tell me in the comments if you've ever experimented with simple solutions in your garden and what results you got. Subscribe to the channel for more practical farming knowledge that actually works without breaking the bank.